Viewers, we are still here at the International Trade Fair taking place in Ndola on the Copper Belt, and right now we are at the Bank of Zambia stand, where we'll be talking to the staff to explain what they are offering and the services which they offer to the members of the public.
For balance of payments and debt at the Bank of Zambia in the Statistics Department. I'm here to talk about the Export Proceeds Tracking Framework. So the Export Proceeds Tracking Framework, known as the EPTF, were introduced on the 1st of January 2024 with the main aim of providing more comprehensive and accurate data on external sector statistics. Particularly, we look at the balance of payment statistics and the international investment statistics. So the electronic balance of payments is the core system in which we record the financial data. Then we have the Ascuda World System, which is the customs management system run by the Zambia Revenue Authority. The third system is the Smart Invoice System, also run by the Zambia Revenue Authority. So the electronic balance of payment system is the commercial banks and other money transfer operators and mobile network operators are interfaced with the Bank of Zambia, so they're able to transmit their cross-border transactions. And the Ascuda World System, we're able to get all the customs management data that we require. So the system entails an interface of these three systems, and we're able to then match the trade data with the financial data. So the EPTF requires that exporters route their export earnings through a local commercial bank. They are allowed 90 days in which to do so. The framework does allow for extensions depending on the trade rules that traders have with their counterparties. However, we have had challenges in communicating this message, so some exporters are still not able to remit the funds within the 90 days prescribed. In terms of the linkages, the framework attempts to link directly all payments for exports, and soon we're introducing imports as well with the monies that we see in the local banking system. This will enable us to have more accurate reflection of our trade position. So when an exporter makes an export, they fill out a form known as a CE20 form on their Ascuda World System. That information is then transmitted to the electronic balance of payment system at the Bank of Zambia. Then we have what is known as the unique consignment reference number to link that reference number links that customs document with the payment that we see in the banking system to ensure accuracy in the linkages of the two, the trade and the financial transaction that we see in the banking system. We use this for all merchandise trade, and then regarding services transactions, we require that all exporters of services do use the Smart Invoice System, generate a smart invoice to their buyer, and use the reference number when a payment is being made into the local banking system. So when the framework was initially introduced in 2024, we focused on the Ascuda World System linked with the EBOP. In 2025, we began works on linking the Smart Invoice System so that we could capture services transactions as well. We are now able to link the services payments that we see in the banking system with the smart invoice number. So all traders of services, all exporters of services are now required to issue smart invoices for any transaction with a non-resident. This has greatly helped in identifying and accurately recording services transactions in the balance of payments. So while the exporter has 90 days in which to repatriate the funds, they do ask for extensions. We've also had, previously we had challenges on the electronic balance of payment system as it could not fully handle the transactions and the growing data needs. So what we have done is we've upgraded the electronic balance of payment system. We now have a new system in place which is able to handle real-time processing of transactions. We've optimized the performance of the system, and we've also allowed for bulk transactions, which will help in more efficient reconciliation of transactions. While the Export Proceeds Tracking Framework requires that export earnings are routed through local commercial banks, the exporter does retain full rights to use and control their funds as they deem fit. There are no retention requirements. There are also no surrender requirements in terms of the funds that come through. So if an exporter wishes to send those monies abroad, they are free to do so. The only requirement is that they are fully recorded on the electronic balance of payment system. This enables us to get the information that we require to inform policy measures. So as the Bank of Zambia, we do work with commercial banks, and commercial banks receive these payments on behalf of they help to ensure that the exporters remain compliant with the EPTF directives. And as previously mentioned, whilst they have to bring in their export earnings, this is mainly just for reconciliation processes, as long as they're routed through our banking system. However, they still retain full rights and control to use these funds. Therefore, it does not interfere with the manner in which they do business, and they're still free to send these monies abroad to meet any other obligations that they may have. So the currency directives are really to enforce the use of the kwacha and ngwe as legal tender in the economy. However, for exports and imports, because these are international transactions, these can be conducted in foreign currency. So in conclusion, the export process tracking framework really just underscores the need for accurate data, and we have seen this happening so far. The export process tracking framework in its first year of operation was able to record 11.2 billion worth of exports. This rose to 11.8 billion last year, and we've also seen the number of international flows overall increase. Before the framework was introduced, we had only recorded 14 billion worth of transactions, international flows. This number has increased to 24 billion as at the end of 2025. That's an increase of over 10 billion. We do expect this to go up higher, which basically means that we have more comprehensive data to inform policy measures. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Muhango Luka from the Bank of Zambia. I'm a senior analyst under the Financial Conduct Supervision Department, specifically the Consumer Protection and Market Conduct Division. Thank you very much for the question. So we, under Financial Conduct Supervision Department, we have certain tenants that we have in terms of market conduct, and one of them is, of course, complaints handling. Consumers have got a right to lodge a complaint, and under our regulations, we have provided that every financial institution or entity that we regulate should actually have a complaints handling mechanism in place. And these procedures must be displayed to the public so that they know the step-by-step in terms of lodging a complaint. So to begin with, a complainant must lodge their complaint with a financial institution. Principally, that's what should happen. In lodging their complaint, a complainant must ensure that they have a reference number that they obtain for the complaint that they have lodged. This reference number helps the consumer to keep track of their complaint, and also to actually escalate their complaint in case the complaint is not resolved. Now, in lodging your complaint, you must make sure that you provide your full names, your full contact details. You must also get to explain exactly the nature of the complaint that you have against that particular institution. The reason why you want to be specific in terms of the complaint is that you also want to have a specific resolution for your complaint that you want the financial service provider to address. And these complaints have got a timeline under our law. So if it's a simple complaint, you should expect that the complaint should be resolved within 3 days. If it's not a so simple complaint, at least you expect that within 3 to 5 days that complaint is resolved. If the complaint is going to exceed the 5 days that is there, the financial institution is mandated to actually communicate to the complainant that the complaint is going to take much longer than the 5 days, and also give the precise period which that complaint is going to take. However, that complaint should not exceed 15 days. In the event that that complaint is not resolved, the complainant has got a right under the internal dispute resolution mechanism of that financial service provider to escalate that complaint to senior management. If senior management does not attend to that, the complainant has got a right to escalate that particular complaint to the CEO of the company. In the event that everything fails and the complaint is not resolved, the consumer has a right to actually escalate the complaint to the Bank of Zambia. Now, when you escalate the complaint to the Bank of Zambia, ensure that every communication that you have with the financial service provider you keep track of all the records. That way it helps us also build a case in order to inquire into the nature of the complaint, what was done by the FSP, and also follow up on why that complaint has not actually been resolved by that financial service provider. Now, remember, the reason why we are intervening in the case is not because we are trying to side with the consumer. We play a neutral party in terms of resolving a case. So we make inquiries with the complainant and we also make inquiries with the financial service provider. And from the facts that we gather, we will be able to determine what is really at stake with regard to the complaint. Thank you. I think I need to highlight one thing. The reason why you have got complaints handling mechanism is also to provide the various channels within which a complainant can actually lodge their complaint. And among them is actually, one of them of course is the advent of technology. We have got chatbots. The reason for chatbots is actually to help the consumer actually have the case resolved as quickly as possible. But in the event that a consumer has got any challenges with a particular platform that is being used, they have got various avenues in which they can lodge their complaint. It can be either by way of correspondence, it can be by way of email, it can also be on a website, or it can be on any other kind of platform that is convenient for them, including face-to-face. There should be no reason why a consumer should be precluded from actually lodging their complaint with a service provider in terms of the complaint that they have. If what is convenient for them is to have a face-to-face talk with that service provider, it must be available to them as an avenue for lodging a complaint. And one of the tenets of lodging a complaint is that it must be cost-effective, meaning that it must be less costly for a consumer to actually lodge a complaint. So given all the avenues and channels that they need to lodge a complaint, a consumer should determine what is convenient for them. And in other countries where it's so developed in terms of these chatbots, you'll find that at a certain point, that chatbot, if it hasn't resolved what you have lodged in as a complaint, it will direct you to want to actually speak to a person. I think one thing we need to understand first of all is that if you have borrowed money from a financial service provider or a regulated entity under the Bank of Zambia, that particular entity has every legal right to actually collect that particular debt. Now, the thing is that how does it go about collecting this particular debt? First of all, we must appreciate that once that money has been extended to that particular consumer, it creates an obligation on the consumer to actually pay that particular debt. And the financial service provider actually has a mandate to actually remind the borrower to actually pay back the debt if it's falling behind in terms of payment. They also have a legal right to actually use any other legal means in terms of recovering the debt. Having said that, the Bank of Zambia also has now put in place laws that actually protect the consumer from abusive ways of collecting debt. What do we mean by that? A financial service provider is not allowed to sort of use abusive language in the collection of debt. You are not allowed also to harass a particular consumer or use third parties that may not have been involved in the transaction in order for you to collect debt. And given those issues that I've talked about, every customer is entitled to the right of dignity and respect from the consumer. And what we are trying to emphasize is that if you have borrowed, pay your loan on time and don't become over indebted, because when you run into a lot of debt, it becomes a challenge for you to pay back debt. And we have also placed a responsibility on financial service providers that they should engage in what we call responsible lending, in that the financial service provider should be able to assess your capacity to pay back debt. If it so determines that you have challenges in wanting to pay back debt, the financial service provider has a right to refuse to extend that loan or debt that you are seeking from them. But if you are aware, the government made a pronouncement in 2024 where money lenders, which are supervised by the Ministry of Finance under the Accountant General's office, who actually come under the ambit of the Bank of Zambia in terms of supervision. I know there is a common term of using the word loan sharks, although the appropriate term is actually money lenders. Now, what's the idea behind this? The idea behind is that these are entities that provide credit, although we might say they are on a small scale. However, the thing is that we want them to be properly regulated so that we can monitor how they are conducting themselves in the market. And I must say that we have also changed the law under the new BFSA, although the President has set a date to it. It's yet to be signed into law for after the commencement law is signed. And that's when the money lenders will come under the Bank of Zambia. And the idea is that we should be able to appropriately supervise money lenders, and it will be an offense actually to operate as a money lender without a license. And therefore, things to do with abuses and so on that are common within this market, these are some of the things that the Bank of Zambia wants to address. I think at the beginning I said that once you lodge a complaint with a financial service provider, you must keep track of how the complaint is being resolved, keep all documentation, whether you are texting, using WhatsApp, SMS, whether you are writing and so on. The importance of this documentation is for other external resolution mechanism to have an opportunity to look at your case independently. And remember, what I emphasized was a reference number. If all avenues have failed within that financial service provider's internal resolution mechanism for resolving a complaint, you can escalate the complaint to the Bank of Zambia. And I must say that we have even made it easier now. You can even send your complaints by way of emails. The email address is complaints@bos.zm. I'll repeat, complaints@bos.zm, or you can call on 0770-550-470. So the thing is that the internal resolution mechanism is meant to make it easy for the financial service provider to resolve the case, because that's where you have your issue. But if that issue is not resolved to your satisfaction, this is when you can escalate it to the Bank of Zambia. And it's not only the Bank of Zambia that can resolve your case. If you feel that strongly the case needs to be heard even by the courts, the complainant is actually free to take the case to court. However, we don't encourage that because it's a costly undertaking and sometimes may take long, and this is why we first give an opportunity for a financial service provider to look at your case and resolve the case. If everything fails, then you escalate the case to the Bank of Zambia. And under the complaints resolution mechanism that we actually have provided under the law, one of the requirements that is there under the procedure is that there is a requirement that all these complaints procedures should include a statement to say if the complaint has not been resolved to the satisfaction of the customer or consumer, they can escalate it to the Bank of Zambia, and it should include the email address to where the complaint should be escalated to in terms of their complaint. Thank you. I just want to emphasize that you must deal with financial service providers that are licensed, and the reason why we are encouraging you to deal with financial service providers that are licensed is that a financial service provider that is licensed has got a regulator, and the regulator has got a law in place that actually determines how a financial service provider should conduct themselves. If you deal with an institution that is not licensed by any particular regulator, it's very difficult to actually escalate your case, and at times the only option that you have is to go to court, which is a very costly undertaking. And to that score, we must say that we are encouraging even consumers or customers to actually visit our website to see the institutions that are actually regulated by the Bank of Zambia, or better still, they can still call the Bank of Zambia to find out if a particular institution is actually licensed by the Bank of Zambia. Thank you.
Well, viewers, you have heard for yourselves about the services which the Bank of Zambia is offering to the members of the public, especially the consumers' rights, to ensure that you know the lending institution where you are getting your money, to ensure that it is registered with the Bank of Zambia, and that even when you get a loan and your money is secured. Continue watching Zanis TV, the People's Channel.